She's done pretty good.
When we looked at the guest speakers for 20 Books London, we got a question in Vegas about list building. How do you build a better newsletter list? And we asked who's the best person for that. And one of the names that came up was Derek Murphy. So he was on one of his famous castle getaways, and we asked him, could you make it? And he said, yes, I think I'll be in London during that time. So here we have Derek Murphy, one of the best in the business on list building. So here you go.
So this picture is how most authors handle their book marketing. And the readers are kind of just trying to do their own thing. They probably already know what they're looking for. Authors are trying to get in front of them and derail them with marketing or advertisements or whatever. And if you do everything perfectly and you have an amazing cover and a blurb and tons of reviews, you might get their attention to buy your book. But it's hard. The other thing you can be doing is building a list and building a direct relationship with your readers. The more readers you have that already know who you are and already like you, the less hard you need to work to get their attention. So it's not necessarily an alternative, but it's something that can very easily be another thing that you do. Besides advertising and marketing and reaching new readers for visibility, you can also be building your list. So I started writing fiction for the first time a couple years ago, and I really wanted to have my own audience. So I built a list before I launched my first novel with book giveaways, which I'll talk about in a minute. And with book giveaways, I built a list of about 8,500 readers before I launched my first novel. Now I keep my list at about 30K, but it's gone up to probably over 100K have signed up to my list. And I had to build a really big list to get it funneled down to a very small list of real fans, like engaged readers. So I might have reached 100,000 people to find 1,000 people that'll just buy my new release whenever I put it out. Because if you have 1,000 people, that's really powerful. But I haven't done very well, and this is also something I noticed. I talk a lot about building your list with giveaways. A lot of authors have started doing this, but then they find that a lot of people sign up for free stuff and they don't buy the book, so they don't feel like list building is very effective. So more recently, I've really tried to narrow down on building an autoresponder sequence that builds a relationship on autopilot. And if you do it well, you could sit down and write 12 emails in a day. That autoresponder series will be building a relationship for you on autopilot while you're writing other books. So it's something you can set up really easily that can be very powerful. And I think it's something most authors are doing wrong, and nobody's really talking about it yet. So that's kind of why I'm excited to share some of this stuff. So when I talk about list building, this is what I usually come across. Either people don't want to do it because they think it's not effective, or they've done it and it's not working for them because they say things like nobody buys anything. So they built a huge list. And this is often like maybe they got 100 people on their email list and then they only got 10 sales. And they say, oh, I only am selling 10%. That's terrible. And actually, that's pretty good. People also say freebies don't buy a review. I don't think that your list is only for people who will actually buy the book. I think you can have lots of positive benefits from people who are on your list. For example, I can give away a lot of free copies and get a whole bunch of reviews really quickly. I can get to the top 100 of the free store on Amazon by sending out an email. There's other benefits. Even if those readers aren't buying my books, I still value them as readers. If they're willing to read my book, I don't mind giving it away for free. That's something I'm changing now that I've been doing it for a while. Now I can charge for my books and my readers will pay for them, but that's because I've given them a lot of books. If you're starting off with zero platform, there's a different kind of marketing for an author who's starting off and doesn't have any readers yet, and someone who's been doing it for a while and builds a loyal fan base. And also people say conversion is terrible. So in business, a 1% conversion rate really isn't that bad, which means if you get 1,000 people on your list, you may expect 1% of them to actually buy the book, which may sound terrible, but that's for cold traffic. So that's when you're putting your message out in front of people who don't really know who you are. The more that you can get them on your list and build a relationship with them, the more they know, like, and trust you, the easier it's going to be to boost that conversion and get much higher. So I don't know if this is what you should shoot for when you're starting off, and not be dismayed if you're getting a 1% conversion rate. But the more you do it, you can get that up to 10% or 20%. You'll always be building a bigger list and then getting rid of the people who aren't very engaged or aren't buying books, so that your core list is more engaged. So there's two types of subscribers, and most people only focus on confirmed fans. So these are people who have read your book, and they'll probably buy something. So those are people who, for example, at the end of your book, you say, if you like this book, please sign up to get something else. They've read your book already. But I also like to have a big list of potential fans. These are people who I know enjoy my genre, but maybe they haven't read my books yet. So I have 2 different lists. This one grows really quickly. I build it with free books and giveaways. And I have to realize that they may not know who I am. They may not care at all about me. They've probably never read any of my books. They may not be opening my emails, but they're still potential fans. I know that if I can get them to read one of my books, they might be fans. So I can't just send them a couple of emails and then give up because they're not interested. I have to kind of keep pushing until I can get them to read something. That's really your big objective, is just to get them to start reading something that you've written, and then push them over to your confirmed fans list, who are people who have actually read your book and like your writing, and are going to be much more likely to review or share your work or buy something. And there's also 2 main methods for building a list that I used a lot in the last couple of years. I do a lot of free books. When I started off, like I said, I didn't have a platform as an author. I wasn't really concerned with making money. I wanted to put out books that people liked and kind of build my trust as an author. So I put out all of my free books were perma-free for the first 3 to 6 months because I just wanted to put them out in the world. The nice thing about perma-free books is that they get a lot more downloads. So you can test, you have a shorter feedback loop, which just means if I get 100 downloads a day, I can make changes to my cover or my description and see results really quickly and know whether or not it's working. So part of the reason I still like free books is just because I can test things really quickly. And once it's really working and the conversion is really good, I can switch it back to paid. And I know that I have the right cover. I know that I have the right hook or tagline or blurb. So that's one of the other advantages of free books. Also, because I get more downloads, I'll get more reviews faster. So I can leave it perma-free for a couple months and get 50 to 100 reviews and then switch it to paid, and it will keep selling because I have the reviews. If you're just trying to sell a paid book and you don't have a platform, you have to spend most of your money on advertising or visibility, and it takes a long time to get your first 10 or 20 reviews. But I also done a lot of book giveaways. So by book giveaways, what I mean is, because I assume people they don't want my books. They don't know who I am. They don't know if I'm a good writer or not. I want to give away books that they've heard of by best-selling authors in the genre that they're already aware of. So I'll put a package together of 10 books and say, win these best young adult mermaid books or whatever, and I'll use targeted Facebook ads to appeal to young adult fiction readers who like mermaids. And that's a very specific offer just for them. And they'll say, oh, 10 mermaid books, this is great. They'll sign up to my giveaway. And the nice thing also about giveaways, there's giveaway software like King Sumo or Bookfetti, which is one that I made. And the idea with the giveaway is that they sign up to win, but then they get more shares. They get more entries if they share the giveaway. So you may get one person to sign up for the giveaway, but they may share it with 10 of their friends. So it's easy to get lots of sign-ups. And again, these aren't fans of my work, but they're fans of, for every book I launch, like I did a mermaid book or a time travel book or whatever, and I would just make a list of people who like that specific genre and make a giveaway just for them. The other nice thing about this, this is one of the giveaways I set up. It has like 28 dark fantasy books, so I could build a relationship with a bunch of other authors, because then when I started out, nobody knew me as a fiction author. I didn't have any fiction author friends, and I really wanted some. So I started doing giveaways as a way that I could feature a whole bunch of other authors on my platform and do these giveaways and promote the other authors. So I'm providing value to my community and making friends that way. But also, I was able to sometimes, like this giveaway, included a book which is Fallen. And Fallen is like one of the major dark fantasy fallen angel books by Lauren Kate. And because she was in my giveaway and because she had a movie coming out, I just pinged her on Facebook and I said, hey, we're giving away, a copy of your book at these dark wings in honor of your movie. And she shared it to her Facebook page and Twitter. She has like 500,000 followers on Facebook and 250 on Twitter, 250,000 on Twitter. So I was able to not only get in front of a lot of the right readers, but also all of the authors who were involved with my giveaway got featured on Lauren Kate's homepage, which is value for everybody. So they felt pretty good about being included. I got a lot of free visibility for that. And a lot of people sign up for my giveaway. So then when they're on your list, I can offer them a free book. They might start to get to know me as an author, and I can lead them down that process of becoming real fans. So a little comment on reasons to read. Whoops. So reasons to read a book. You'll notice that the last one down there is it's free. So one of the problems with free books is that just because you give away a free book doesn't mean anyone's going to download it, and it doesn't mean anyone's going to read it, because there are millions of people giving away free books. So it's not enough to have a free book. You still need to have a great cover, you still need to have a great blurb, and you still need reviews. And also, just because someone downloaded your free book doesn't mean they've read it. So if someone signs up for your free book on Instant Freebie or BookFunnel, or you're putting a free book on Amazon or whatever, just because they downloaded it doesn't mean they've read it. So you can't talk to them like a fan. You can't talk to them about your book because they probably didn't read it yet. You still have to talk to them as people who might be interested in your genre, but probably don't give a shit about you yet. That's still your job to build that relationship with them. But you've got your foot in the door by giving them a free book. And now you have the opportunity to build a relationship with them. So this is how most authors talk to their lists. Which looks something like this. And so a lot of authors, maybe you've built a big list, but you just don't know what to say, or you don't want to be annoying, so you don't know what to write to them about, and you feel a little bit weird every time you send out an email. So most authors keep it really short, and they focus on like 3 emails. And for the last couple of years, this is all I had also. I had like a welcome email, here's your free books, did you like my books, please review, and that's basically it. And that's not really good enough, because once you have them on your list, if 90% of them don't actually know or care about you yet, you still need to build a relationship. So it's an opportunity for you to build a relationship with readers, but you need to work harder. Every author is doing this. So readers are used to this. It's not really remarkable enough. You still have to be new and interesting enough to create great content for them, care about them as a reader, and try to get them to engage with you and to come back. So this is the normal in-between between author and reader is your book. So the reader downloads a book, the author talks about their books. But it's not really a personal relationship. It's just based around the books. What I prefer is something like this, which is the BFF model. So you want your reader to feel like they're a special insider that you're talking to directly. Yes?
And that PSA on the previous slide, can you clarify what that acronym is for?
PSA is public service announcement.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a newsletter where you're announcing to your list. So you're kind of on a pedestal and you're speaking to your readers. You really want to be going out to coffee with your readers and like flirting with them a little bit, so they feel like you see them and you appreciate them, and you feel like you're not just like a authority figure, but you're just a cool person to hang out with. And also in this model, your books are part of the puzzle, but they're not the in-between thing. You can build a relationship with your readers that's independent of your books. So your conversion will go up. Maybe your books are pretty good and they kind of like them, but they're not really going to review them, or maybe they're not going to buy them. But the more you can build this direct relationship with your readers, the more likely they're going to be to do things for you, like review your books or share your books. And that can be really powerful. The more readers you have that really like you as a person, they're going to go, and vice versa. If you like them as a person, if they know that you like them as a person, if they feel like you listen to them and you understand them, they're going to become hardcore fans. So they're going to be your evangelists, which can be very valuable. So these are some of the things. This is kind of my notes. And later, I think I'll have time to share what I'm going to do with my fiction platform. But these are some of the things you want to think about putting in your autoresponders series. So not just, here's my free book, please review my book. Basically, you want to identify what things your readers like and talk a lot about those things. I won't go through all of these individually, but a couple that I'll point out. Okay, well, maybe I'll go through them all. The first one, provide value. You kind of want to, you don't want to like say that you're awesome, but if you can name drop a couple of things, like sometimes I rent castles. That's kind of a cool thing. I don't like brag about it to my list, but I might incidentally say, oh, last week I was in this castle in Austria and I wrote this book, here's the first chapter. If you can drop little things that are kind of cool that your readers might get a kick out of, that's an easy win. It also helps to, there's a term called brand transference. So if they already like something else, and you like that thing too, and you include it in your newsletter, they will automatically, some of that trust and likability will automatically flow to you. A lot of people do this with pets. So if you see in like business or even on Tinder, people will hold a dog or a cat because people like pets. And that's an easy thing to do and get people to like you more. So if you have a dog or a cat and that's part of your writing routine, if you have a cat who always steps on your keyboard or whatever, and you can talk about in that newsletter, you're going to become a lot more likable to just about everybody. You might want to figure out if your readers are more dog people or cat people, but if you can figure that out and include that in your newsletter, it sounds really stupid, but that's an easy way to get people to like and trust you more because it's a shared, what's the word? Something you both enjoy, something you both care about. You also want to tell stories that humanize you. Tell stories is really important. So instead of saying, my book is out, it's free, please download it. If you can start off with a hook and then a story to get them to, you want to paint pictures in their head. So if you can get them to imagine something and they'll remember the story, it's always going to be more effective than just an information dump. So start with a story before you ask them to do anything or before you present the information. Also focus on them. So you don't want to just be talking about yourself. This is something that comes up with Twitter a lot. With Twitter, you don't want to just talk about your own stuff all the time. You want to be talking about other people's stuff or interesting things that your readers will like about 90% of the time. So most of the time, you want to talk about your readers and not about yourself. I'm going to skip the rest of these because I talk a lot about them again in a later slide. So the other thing that's important is to get them to open the email, because if they don't open the email, it doesn't really matter what you say in the email. So some of the ways to do that are to think of the things that, just like you would for a book, when you have a new book, you would search for the keywords and find out what people are searching for. So you need to know what your audience likes and do some keyword research. You can use KDP Rocket for keyword research. Make a list of things that your readers like. And then you can use a title generator. There's websites where you can put in a keyword phrase and it will spit out a clickable title. And if you can use that in your subject for your email, and you're talking about a lot of interesting things, the trick is just to get them to click to open the email, because most of the time they're not going to open your emails anyway. You have to say something interesting enough to kind of get their attention and get them to click and open. So some of the ways to do that, I think someone mentioned earlier, open loops, but you can do that also in the subject of your email, in the subject header, where you say, here's my 7 favorite books of all time, number 3 changed my life. So they have to click the header to open the email to see what number 3 is. So that's an open loop. So to refer to something inside the email, but they have to actually open it to see what it is. This one, a lot of people still use Freebook, and I may continue to use Freebook for the first welcome email. The problem is it's being overdone so much. You may want to hook with something that stands out a little bit more. So one of the examples I haven't tested yet, but I kind of want to. My first book was about mermaids, and a lot of traffic to my website is for the search phrase, how do mermaids have sex? So I wrote an article, and people search for that, and they find my blog. And they may not necessarily be my right readers, but that's something that will get attention. So it's my very first welcome email, and maybe not the free book email, but maybe my first introduction email to myself, or to my, like when you're trying to get readers to give a shit about what you write about and why you write, you kind of have to tell your story and give them a reason to care about what you're writing. So if I write my headline for my subject, my first email as how do mermaids have sex, a lot of people are going to click it to read my email. And in the email, I can talk about why I wanted to have biological functional mermaids, because in my magical systems, I don't want it to just be like Disney proof magic. I want it to be magic that's based on scientific possibility, at least to some extent. That gives them kind of an interesting point to clip into my writing style or what I'm trying to do with my fiction. How often should you send emails? I think you should keep sending emails at least once a week for 3 months, which is 12 emails. So I try to have an autoresponder series of 12 emails that goes out once a week. And the reason is you don't really know when they're going to open the email, and you don't know which of your emails are going to appeal to them. So you want 12 very different types of emails that different people will respond to in different ways, because probably everybody's only going to open a fourth of your emails anyway. So you don't want to give up after 3 emails. You want to keep writing. Maybe they're busy this month, but 2 months later you send an interesting email and they open it. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this sounds cool. I'm going to go back and read those older emails. I'm going to download all these authors' books. You don't want to give up too early. There's a rule in online marketing that you want to keep emailing until they unsubscribe. Like, you want to make people unsubscribe by showing up. And if you're worried about being annoying, that just means your content isn't good enough. So you should focus on every email should be a surprise and delight. Every email should be a gift that makes your readers' lives better. They should look forward to your emails because you're not asking them for things. You're not like making them feel bad. You're surprising and delighting them by giving them unexpected great content. The more you can do that, the more they're going to like and trust and look forward to your emails. And this is also training. So if you can do this and they start opening your emails and looking forward to your emails, 6 months later when you have a new release and you send out an email, they're going to remember you and they're going to open it. And also you want them to get used to your name and your face in your books. So the more you send out emails, the more they'll start to feel comfortable with you and they'll start to recognize your name. And then, like I said, they're not going to open them all anyway. Once a week's really not that often. And most other authors are going to give up after 3 emails. So most authors, they'll probably skip all the emails. They'll get their free book or their free download, and that's it. It'll be done. But if you are the author who keeps showing up, they'll recognize you. They'll see you at least. They'll be like, why is this guy still emailing me when I downloaded the book 3 months ago? It may be a little bit weird, and if they want to, they can unsubscribe, and that's totally cool. But you don't want to lose the opportunity to build a relationship as long as they're still seeing your emails. Even if they're not opening your emails, just by showing up in their inbox every week, and they're reading your funny or interesting headlines, they're being aware of you. You're on their radar. So when they see your book on Amazon, they're like, oh, I kind of recognize that author name. It's because you're showing up in their inbox. How am I doing on time?
You have 15 minutes still.
Okay. So this is basically what I've outlined for my fiction. And if you write nonfiction, I have a whole different thing on nonfiction, which is a lot more business focused. But for fiction, this is kind of what I want to try to do. And you can have a copy of this online or in the slides or whatever. I'll make a link available for you later. The first one's kind of interesting. So did you get the free books? Is the first thing I usually say. And I also sometimes have a share to unlock feature, which is, there's a WordPress plugin, which is Social Locker. And the idea is they signed up for a free book. You send them to a thank you page where they can download the free book, but then you can offer them, and it's basically an upsell, but it's another free book that they can unlock if they share it. So if you get someone to sign up on your list and go to your thank you page and download your free book, you can immediately get them to tweet or share on Facebook and be like, hey, I just got this free book, and they'll share it to all their friends because they're unlocking their bonus book. So it's a really easy way to double down. Like, whatever you're doing to build your email list, you can double the results by adding an extra book that they can unlock. This is something I was using King Sumo, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And I also made a giveaway app for authors because I think giveaways are really powerful. But what King Sumo's new edition does now is they sign up for the giveaway they give you your email to sign up for the list, and then they're in the giveaway. But then immediately once they sign up, it says you can earn extra entries by following the author on Twitter, by sharing this on Twitter, by sharing this on Facebook. So there can be like 5 other things you get them to do, which is nice. So immediately after the first giveaway, I may also do another giveaway, either with King Sumo or once they're on my thank you page. Once they've downloaded my bonus content, I can also, like, my first other email might be, here's another giveaway. Because once they're on your list, you can try to get them to follow you on Twitter or Facebook. You can try to get them engaged. A lot of the content that I do is just about getting them engaged. So I'll ask them a question, and I'll try to get them to my Facebook group so they can answer my question. I want to ask them a lot of questions. I want to ask them to vote. I also want to do something like this one, which is user-generated content. So I'll do something like, what are your favorite quotes in young adult literature? And every month I'll have a $20 or $50 Kindle credit prize. And I'll just tell my list, every month you have a chance to win money by taking a picture or pulling out, like typing your favorite quote from young adult literature and posting it on my Facebook page here. And then I'll turn all of that into nice graphic quotes. It has the book cover, the book name, the author name, and the quote. And I can make 500 of those and put them up on Pinterest and Twitter. I can release them on my Facebook group. It's user-generated content because they're submitting the quotes, but I'm turning it into really, really good content. So whenever anybody searches for, best quotes of young adult fiction, they'll find me and my content on the internet. So it's a really good way for me to keep, I'm not only engaging my existing audience, but I'm attracting new audience with great content. And I'm getting them involved because I want my audience to be involved. The hard part is getting them to talk to you because mostly they're going to be running away. So if you can try to pull them in and get them to comment or or talk about themselves and what they like, that's a big win. You really just want to, for my PhD thesis, I talked a lot about Paradise Lost. So there's this thing in Paradise Lost, Kierkegaard has a book on seduction. And there's this thing about seduction by withdrawing. So the seducer withdraws to leave space. And the person who's actually doing the seducing is not the person who is, trying to pick up the object of their affection. It's actually the person who's withdrawing because that creates the space that attracts the person who fills it with themselves. Anyway, so you kind of want to leave space for your audience. If you're just there talking all the time, they're not really going to listen. But if you can ask them a question and withdraw and create a group activity where they see other people are also commenting, like you are the organizer of a community, you're not just talking down to them. So this is basically this is what I would recommend, this is what I'm going to start doing. However, like I said, it's probably better to start with a really powerful email hook. So rather than, 10 things young adult readers are sick of hearing, I might do something like the first time I got abducted by aliens, which is a little more mysterious and engaging. And then I can also talk about, my biography and why I write sci-fi and fantasy. That's a story I'll tell you some other time if you're curious. Whoops, can you go back? Let's keep going. Yeah, so because I talked a lot about book giveaways, but the software I recommend, KingSumo or Gleam or Rafflecopter, which I don't like so much, they're expensive. So I built my own giveaway software, which looks like this, which I think works pretty well. And you can get a free copy with that link. I also have a course I made on email list marketing that is free for you with that link. But you can get this giveaway app, and because KingSumo is so good and possibly better than mine, I installed KingSumo on my website, so you can log into my website and use KingSumo on my platform for free if you want to do giveaways and test that out. So you can use BookFetti or KingSumo to set up your own author giveaways. They're both really cool. I think they're great for list building. I saw something on Facebook or on YouTube recently where they were talking about the best release strategy. So what things should you do? What's your release pre-launch roadmap? And it was all this stuff like cover reveals and whatever. The problem is, if you don't have an email list, nobody's going to see any of your content. So if you do a cover reveal, nobody cares because nobody's listening. And you always have to pay to access somebody else's platform. So even if you haven't published a book yet, I think it's really a powerful idea to start building an email list. I always try to get people on my email list first and then send them to follow me on social media or other platforms. I do think giveaways are one of the best ways to build an email list because, like I said, you want to give them something. If you remember the first picture I showed you, which is the hippo, and the hippo is just trying to basically run away. Instead of being a lion who's trying to attack the hippo, if you just plant some hippo food over there under a tree and attract the hippos to you and let them enjoy the food in peace, you're going to have a lot better results. So if you're setting up giveaways and prizes and rewards that people already want, it's going to be much easier to build your list faster. And I'm going to end here for questions.
If anybody has a question, come on up, form a queue here. Mark will hand you the microphone, just so we can hear you for the live stream.
It's on, yeah. I wanted to ask, recently there seems to have been a big move for, you don't open an email for whatever reason, you're busy, and 24 hours later you get one, in case you missed this, did you miss this, blah, blah, blah. And 24 hours later you get it again. By this point you're like, I'm going to unsubscribe if I'm going to get an email off them every day. What do you think of this sudden movement towards this?
Yeah, it's because you can resend a campaign that doesn't open, so they're probably not sending it to everybody, they're probably just sending it to people that know didn't open. And I would only do it if you're launching something. So like, most of the time I'm giving away free content, I'm sending interesting stuff, I'm not gonna resend the campaign every time I send an email. But if I have a book launch, I want every sale. So maybe most of my list they don't want to buy anything, that's fine, but I'm also not going to be afraid of trying a few times, because that's really why I have my list.
Yeah.
So if people aren't opening my emails when I have a book launch, I might resend it a couple times. Yeah. And if they unsubscribe and they're never going to buy anything, I'm not too worried about that.
It's just there are some people doing it every time.
Yeah, I would do it every time.
It gets irritating there. Sorry.
Hiya. So I work in marketing full-time outside of my writing stuff, and I was just wondering, when it comes to me putting together a newsletter or an email, I'm trying to think of a catchy subject header. I find myself really blinded by the fact that I know the marketing tricks. How do you separate yourself and put yourself in the mind of the reader? Because it might be that the line is actually fantastic and it actually pulls in the reader, but for me I might think, oh, that's a bit cliche. How do you kind of separate that?
Probably I would test. The danger of coming from a marketing background, you may think it's cliche or bullshit. On the other hand, there are 100 titles that always work, and they've worked for the last 200 years. And so by avoiding those, it's kind of like with book cover cliches. By avoiding book cover cliches, it means you're not making a cover that's going to be obvious and attract your readers. So as a designer, you may think you want something new and cool, and it's not going to sell any books because you're avoiding what works. So I would be careful not to avoid what works. Like I would err on the side of being obvious and choose something that works. But on the other hand, I would also test it. So like you may think you have a brilliant, funny idea that totally doesn't work. And you shouldn't go with what you think. You should go with what the market bears out based on research. So you should test, every couple of weeks, test your email subject lines and see if you get better opens.
Kind of a two-part question here. I use MailerLite for my email list, which cost me 10% of what MailChimp did, but is notoriously bad about their onboarding autoresponder stuff. Do you have a recommended site that does work really well? And how do you feel about the possibility of using a more expensive service for onboarding and then funneling them from there into a cheaper service for your bulk list?
I moved to MailerLite recently. I was on MailChimp the last 5 or 6 years, and I was paying like $300 a month for my mailing list. And the main reason I switched, MailChimp has been recently trying to compete with the new upstarts. So they're making a bunch of changes, which I just found confusing. I was paying too much anyway. The reason I really like MailerLite, not only is it a lot cheaper, but they have landing pages. So I've been using a whole bunch of other things, like ClickFunnels, to make a nice landing page. With MailerLite, you have a landing page and then a thank you page for everything that you set up. And I've actually found my conversions have gone up a lot since using MailerLite's landing pages. So not only is it cheaper, but I'm getting a lot more opt-ins since I switched to MailerLite. I haven't seen any difficulties yet. I know they screw up sometimes, but so far everything seems to be working pretty well for me. So I think MailerLite's a good choice.
Interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, MailChimp introduced the landing pages as well, obviously, to compete. Because I saw that and I was like hearing about MailerLite, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll stay with MailChimp a bit longer because you know, it had a nice, simple landing page, no distractions.
Yeah,
They're
they've
competing. Yeah.
started to try to add more features, but they're not very good yet. So like
Right.
their landing page is almost nothing, and you can customize it and make it, you know,
Yeah, I
cool.
haven't looked at it in much detail. No.
Yeah, it's not great.
Okay.
And it's great that they're innovating. And, you know, in another, like, they may get their shit together in another year, but it still costs twice as much as Martelle anyway. So for me, I was
Any
kind of.
question?
Hi, Darren. My question is, I noticed that a lot of your mails are actually designed to invite personal conversation with your readers, dialogue. Problem I have is I've got about 3,000 people on my mailing list, and I'm getting about 100 mails every week. And it's great fun, it's the highlight of my day to talk to people, but it's exhausting. And I'm really getting writing done now. How do you deal with that? Do you have an assistant or?
No. Which is kind of funny, because I'm at the point now where some people will be like, I'm sorry to bother you, or like they're trying to reach Derek Murphy, but they think they're talking to an assistant, which is weird. No, and in my nonfiction stuff, my first email, because this is something I learned in business a long time ago, but the first email is just to try to get them to reply. So I say something like, whatever you're frustrated with, whatever you're having troubles with, hit reply to this email and talk to me, and maybe I'll try to help. And I do that, and I don't get as many as I used to get, but I probably get 5 a day. And it doesn't take me that long to reply. You know, they ask me some questions and I reply and I say, hey, nice to meet you. I think that's important. So I spend the time to do that. Hopefully, ideally I'll try to put them on my Facebook page. At least I'd rather, if they're gonna ask questions, I'd rather them ask it on Facebook so other people can see my answers instead of answering everything over and over again, which gets exhausting.
Because it could be worse. When I've read about, you know, authors back in the day when there's no such thing as email, authors like Herman Hesse would spend half his day corresponding in letters to his fans.
Yeah,
So, you know,
that'd be fun.
yeah, every day of his life.
Yeah, I have a question for the, so it's not a question, just to say I get a lot of replies as well from my readers, but what I do is I batch. So I have 1 day or half a day or just a couple of hours, and that's the only time I open that email inbox. Otherwise, I don't go there, and that helps me a lot. So they know they won't get a reply immediately, but it might be like once a fortnight or so.
Right.
Just one more question.
No, it was, I wanted to ask the person who said she was getting 100 emails a day or a week. You said you have 3,000 subscribers, and you. That's
it.
Thank you. And you get 100 emails a week. I have also around 3,700, and they only reply to the emails that I invite them to reply to. So my question is, what are your newsletters about? What do you send them? Maybe it's,
That's too many questions, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, any more questions, just ask Derek after, because we have to move on now, guys.
Oh, thanks.
We have a quick break now, about 15 minutes, re-energize, just after lunch, stand up, move around a little bit.